How many times have we heard over the past 50 years, LDL? That's what causes heart disease. You got to get it lower. We're going to talk about that today. Hello everyone, Semi-Retired Bob here. I talk about the carnivore diet, all things related to the carnivore diet, and miscellaneous odds and ends. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. You might be wondering what in the world you're watching here. Well, basically you're watching me walk. 22 and a half months ago, I couldn't do this. I could barely stand for more than a couple of minutes without severe pain. Now I'm out here walking every day. It's a nice sunny day in Omaha, Nebraska, but it's certainly not very warm. I'm sure there's some wind noise on the camera because it's very windy and that wind's still coming out of the north, so it's got a pretty good bite to it. It's about 46 degrees out today. If you're returning to the channel, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. It means a lot to me that you spend just a few moments of your day with me. So I'd like to ask all of you to help me out. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Drop down in the comments and say, "Hi, Bob." If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. All of these things help me get the word out that it's never too late to change your life. I'm 60 years old, coming up on 61 really quick here. And I'm doing things that I couldn't do when I was 40, like out here walking every day. I'm not going super far tonight because with just a few weeks left until the dance concert on May the 18th, I went at it pretty hard at dance class yesterday, and I tweaked my knee just a little bit. So I'm just walking a little bit. It's certainly not enough to keep me from walking or doing my exercises for today or dancing or any of that stuff. I just feel it a little bit. But let's jump on into this thing here. I can't tell you how many times, somebody starts following my channel. They're doing great on carnivore. They've lost some weight. They feel better. And then they go to their doctor, get lab work done. And they come back and say, "Sorry, Bob, I gotta cut out this carnivore diet stuff because my LDL went through the roof. And my doctor said, no, that's just a hard stop. You can't do that." I've said it many times on this channel, and I'm going to continue to say it till everybody understands. LDL is not causally related to heart disease in any way. But you don't have to take my word for it. Down after I finish talking about this, I'm going to insert a little excerpt from the interview I did with a cardiovascular pathophysiologist, Professor Bart Kay. And he explains it way better than I can. The only thing I like to talk about with this LDL and cholesterol and all that, the way I look at it in my simple retired truck driver mind. Now remember, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I just try to apply common sense from an old retired truck driver's point of view to complex issues. And cardiovascular disease, atherosclerotic lesions, is a very complicated thing. But let me ask you this question. What's the number one killer in the modern world? Heart attack, stroke. As Professor K will explain to us, the veins don't actually make or get atherosclerotic lesions. This wind is really strong. Hopefully you can hear me today. But cardiovascular disease is still the number one killer. Maybe cancer's caught up to it. It's getting really close. But what have the cardiovascular disease rates done over the last 40 years. They've gone up and up and up. What else has gone up a lot over the last 40 years? Our use of statins and other drug therapies that lower cholesterol. Cholesterol lowering medications is a $1 trillion industry. Well, you would think that if lowering cholesterol, LDL, or all the other things, no matter what the particles are, if lowering cholesterol or lipoproteins, which is what LDL is, it's not actually cholesterol, but we've been working on lowering those for the last 40 years. Wouldn't you expect heart disease to be going down at the same rate that the use of cholesterol lowering medications was going up, if that was the cause or had anything to do with it? You know, maybe you don't see a one-to-one correlation, but you shouldn't see it going up at the rate it is with the vast amount of usage of these pharmaceutical poisons. But yeah, that's it just doesn't make sense to me. So now I'm going to go ahead and insert the clips from my interview with Professor K here, and I'll let him explain to you why LDL is not the cause of heart disease and why we probably shouldn't worry about it.
Right. Okay. This is a fascinating one, and it's one that, you know, obviously I've studied for several decades. I've contributed to the peer-reviewed literature in this field. I've taught it to pre-med students and, you know, others that are going to end up working in the NHS health services in the UK and in other parts of the world as well. And it's always interesting when people suggest, you know, is there any reason to suggest that LDL is not causal in heart disease? And I always say, well, I'm not saying you're wrong there, Bob, at all, that there's no reason to say it's not. But here's one for you. Atherosclerosis, heart disease, occurs in the arteries. It does not occur in veins. Those arteries and veins carry the same blood, do they not?
Yes, they do.
Containing the same cholesterol carried by the same carriers. And yet, on the venous side of your circulation, no atherosclerosis. None. Okay? Have a heart bypass operation because you've got atherosclerosis in your heart. What do? They take a vein out of your leg, which will never have atherosclerosis in it because it's a vein, and they'll stick it in where the bridging work needs to be done in the heart. And then guess what happens over the next few years? That vein starts to develop atherosclerosis. So, for my money, I am prepared to say it looks like LDL and or any cholesterol and or any fraction of cholesterol and or any of the lipoproteins. I am prepared to say none of them are causally involved in heart disease and atherosclerosis. Because if they were, atherosclerosis would develop in veins just as much as it does in arteries. And it doesn't, ever. So what's the difference? Well, two things: blood pressure and blood turbulence. The thing that most highly correlates to atherosclerotic lesioning is the sheer rate of blood going past the epithelial cell concerned. So where the blood flows in a fairly laminar, fairly low pressure way through the veins, it just flows through, no problem. It doesn't cause an issue, and it's at relatively low pressure. Ramp that pressure up as it is on the high pressure side of the vasculature, and have bifurcations, Y-shaped bifurcations, for example, or the aortic arch, some of these structures in the high pressure side that subserve getting the blood where it needs to be, but are not best conducive to dealing with basically the turbulence around those bifurcations or around sending fluid through an arch. Where the turbulence is occurring, the sheer rate of the blood at that point in the vascular tree is reduced. That blood hangs around a lot longer before being forced away by the next blood. And as such, it exerts pressure for much longer at much higher pressures and pulsatile every time the heart beats. Because the other thing about atherosclerosis is they always occur in arteries bigger than about that, never the smaller arteries even. So it's all about pressure and turbulence. The only other thing we now need is susceptibility of that tissue. So we need to inflame that tissue or physically damage that tissue or chemically derange the system in some way to make that tissue vulnerable to that problem. And that's easy. All we need to do to get that to happen is to elevate our blood sugar level above what it should be naturally. That will kill two birds with one stone, because that will cause glycation of the tissues, which is immediately damaging. And it will raise the blood pressure, because if you eat a lot of carbohydrate, you will have too much insulin being produced chronically, and that will prevent your kidneys from filtering sodium out. That's the cause of high blood pressure, not salt. Because if you're healthy, your kidneys work properly, and if you eat too much salt, it filters it out. It's the too much insulin that stops that happening. So then you get the edema and all of that. It becomes a self-serving problem, the whole thing. And then eventually you've got either a heart attack or congestive heart failure. So the causes are high blood pressure and derangement of molecules via oxidative damage and or glycative damage, both of which are also ameliorable. The only reason that we're not really doing a great job of that, I guess, is because the medical establishment is still firmly focused on believing that LDL is the causal agent, which is akin to blaming forest fires on the fire crews, frankly.
And there you have it, folks. That explains it very well. So stop worrying about your cholesterol, your LDL, or anything else like that. Concentrate on getting rid of the inflammation in your body, and concentrate on lowering your excessive insulin levels. I hope you enjoyed this. Happy Thursday, everybody. Don't forget the live stream tomorrow. Have a great day, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget, get out there, be 1% better today, tomorrow, every day.